Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. How often do you get distracted by fabric? I was just about to start a new video using these upholstery samples when I walked past my fabric to find some linings and I came across two pieces of this. So I've been distracted. Now I have to make something with these two pieces of fabric. Absolutely gorgeous, isn't it? It's stunning and vibrant. I'll get back to those crossbody bags another day. And today we're going to make something with this fabric. I have something in mind that I've been wanting to do for a few days now. So let's get to it. Both of these pieces are the same size and I have 24 by 21 inches of usable fabric with each of them, which is about 60 by 55 centimetres. Before I start, what I'm going to do is grab some fusible fleece. The product I love to use is called Parlan. It's nice and thin and lightweight. Just gives a good feel to the fabric. So I'm going to fuse that onto the entire piece of both of these pieces. And I think whatever I've got left out of the fabric, I'll probably make some little zippered pouches or boxy bags or something. So I'll use up the entire amount today. And once I've worked out what I'm going to be making, I'll give you some dimensions. All right, I've cut up all the fabric pieces that I'm going to need for this bag and also for another project, which I will end up doing another video for. Now I'm going to put all the measurements up on the screen shortly. What I've got is two pieces of fabric for the outer part of the bag, and what I've also done is stabilized that fabric with the fusible fleece. In my case it's Parlan. So I have two pieces for the outer, two pieces for the lining. Then I've cut two pieces of fabric and lining for the outer pocket. I'm having two outside pockets in this bag. I've only just decided this. And on the inside of the bag, I might as well put a couple of pockets as well because I have fabric. I need a little bit of extra stabilizer because I'm going to be using a magnetic closure on the inside of the bag, and I'm going to be using webbing for the handles. Oh, and the fabric that I had left, there was actually enough to make two little pouches, so I'm going to make a couple of pouches in a separate video, and that's where I'll be using the swivel clip, I think. I'll decide that next time. So now we can get started. And the first thing I'm going to do is find some labels and put those on my bag. I've decided I'm going to put a label onto the front pocket, and I'll be using my Christine Made It label. This is one of my really nice ones. I figure the fabric is nice. It deserves a nice label. I don't think I should cover that up. I'll use that one instead. When we install our magnetic snap later, it will be done the same way that I'm about to do with my name tag. So these have prongs on the side and these have prongs as well. So the cutout or the shaping for the prongs is going to be the same for both items. Let's find the center of my pocket fabric. I'll make a little mark, and then whereabouts am I going to put that? I think about there is fine. So I'll center my washer. Every label that you have is going to go in a different place depending on the sizes that you have. And I'll mark a line for the cutout of my prongs. In this instance, I'm going into the second last slot at both ends. And using the point of my seam ripper, I'm going in at the bottom of that line I've marked. So I'll poke a hole through, and with that same point I'm going to bring that point up through the top of the mark that I've made, and by doing that I'm not going to accidentally rip the rest of my fabric. So I'll just give that a push, and that's put a little hole in the fabric right here, and I can get my prong through. I'll do that for this side as well. And I can pop that prong through there, grab the washer, and it's up to the individual whether you have your prongs facing outward or inward. I usually let the prongs decide which way they're going. Okay, that's my label installed. When we come time to putting this in, we'll do exactly the same thing. Whilst we've got the pocket piece, we might as well prepare them. Grab your lining and we'll place the lining and the outer fabric right sides together. Set that one aside. Grab the other pocket piece. Place those right sides together. If you wanted Velcro to close up the outside pockets or even a plastic snap, I'd put that onto the lining before you actually sew this together. We can take these to the machine and sew straight along the long edges of both of these. We don't need to do the sides. Once we've done that, turn this the right way out and then you can top stitch just the top edges. Set that aside for the moment. We can grab our bag pieces and I think I'd like to taper the sides, because if I don't, when I cut my box corners out, I'm going to have a square base here that is shorter and then the bag will taper out at the top. And I don't think I want that with this bag. I think I'd like it more straight. And in that case, I need to know what size my box corners are going to be when I start as well. Let's work on the wrong side of the fabric. I am going to measure 2 inches or 5 centimetres from the outside edge. And I'm also going to measure 2 inches or 5 centimetres from the top here. I'll just make a little mark at the top. And what I'm going to do now is layer all of the pieces together. So my 2 outer fabric pieces, make sure I've got the orientation the right way. Place those right sides together. I'll also have my lining with the right sides together, and then I'll place the outer fabric over the top, lining up all of these layers at the same time. You don't have to layer everything together. You can actually make your marks separately on your lining fabric, but this is quicker, and I'll also know that my fabric pieces are the same size. If I make a mistake, it'll be the same mistake on all of the layers. Okay, box corners, and we've got our little 2-inch mark up the top here. We can draw a line from this mark down to the corner of our boxing and repeat for the other side. And this is what we'll be cutting out. So cut along here, cut the box corner out, same here and along there. Okay, so that's all cut out. What we have are our outer fabric pieces and our lining pieces, all the same size, with the fabric pieces the right side together. We can clip those edges together along the bottom. That can be sewn up, and we'll do the same for the lining. And we have one more set of pockets, so we'll prepare that as well. Grab the outer fabric with the right side faced up, the lining fabric faced down, and we'll do that for the other one as well, because I just figure we might as well have loads of pockets in this bag. Saves having to try and think of another project for the excess bits of fabric. And you can never have too many pockets, right? So these 2 pockets are the smaller pieces. We're going to sew all the way around for these ones, so all 4 sides, but you will leave an opening in the bottom section for turning through. So back stitch here, sew all the way around, finish up with a back stitch there. Do the same for this one. I like to mark the bottom of my fabric so that I know which end is up and down. So we'll sew those together. We'll take the main fabric, sew up the bottom seam on the lining and the outer fabric, and that leaves us our other 2 pocket pieces, which are our external pockets. We're just going to sew the long edges on both of them. Let's do some sewing. Okay, I'm starting with the external pockets. I've just got a 1 centimetre seam allowance for these. I lie, I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance for these. flip it around and do the same on the other side. So both of those were just the two long edges with a smaller pocket, so I'm going to make this a 1 centimetre seam allowance, and that will help with the fold at the bottom when we're closing it up later. When I get to corners, I like to backstitch and then go back to the corner and then turn and go forward a couple and back a couple. And I like to do that on each of my corners just to reinforce them. And when I get to the bottom again, I'll leave about 3 or 4 fingers width of an opening and backstitch. And then I can do the same again for the other pocket. And these were the internal pockets. And the last thing we've got to do right now is sew up the bottom of our bag pieces. And the bottom of our bag will also have a 1 centimetre or 3/8 inch seam allowance. And it will be the same for the lining. Alright, we'll set aside the bag pieces for the moment. These are the pockets, and the two larger ones that we've only sewn the top and bottom. We'll turn these the right way out and then press them, and once you've nicely ironed those pieces, you can top stitch the top row only, and we'll do the same for the other one as well. With the other two, which are the smaller pockets, we'll clip the corners and turn these the right way out, poke out your corners. We'll press these as well. Alright, our pocket pieces have been nicely pressed. These two being the bigger ones, I'm going to take to the machine, top stitch the two long edges. These two have the opening along the bottom here. We don't need to close that up just yet, but we will top stitch the top edges along here. Our pockets are all fixed up now and ready to be inserted into our bag. Let's grab the outer fabric. With both the lining and the outer fabric, I have gone and pressed the seams open, and what we're going to do is place our pockets onto the bag. So we need to find the center along here and then the position that we'd like to put these pockets, and on either side we're going to have our webbing, which will form our handles as well. Let's fold the fabric in half and we'll find the center. We'll do that at both ends, and from the top we're going to measure 5 inches or 13 centimetres. That will be the top position of our pocket. So line up the center of our pocket with that mark we've made along the center here, and just measure that evenly from the top. Pop a couple of pins in place. We'll do the same at the other end. So once again, we'll measure 5 inches or 13 centimetres. Find the centre of your pocket and we'll line that up as well. So if you fold that in half, we've got one pocket here and another one on this side. We're going to sew along this bottom edge to close it, and then we're going to secure that in place along the side edges as well. We'll do that on the back and front. We're also going to take our lining and we'll do the same thing with the other pocket pieces. Fold the fabric in half with right sides together. I've marked the centre, which you won't be able to see, and using my pocket pieces I'll find the centre of those as well. So we might as well line those up the same distance from the top, which is 5 inches. So with this one we're going to sew along the side, along the bottom and up the side again, and that will close up that little opening that we have in the bottom of our pocket. We'll do the same for the other side. These are just very simple pockets, but they add a little bit of interest to the bag, makes it a little bit more useful. Okay, so they're ready as well. With these pockets, at the top edge here, you want to reinforce this really well and sew down around the sides. Same on the other side. These ones here, all we need to do is sew them in place. We don't need to worry about securing anything, because the webbing, when we put that on, is going to cover that and give you some extra support as well. So just make sure you've separated your layers. You don't want back and front behind each other. And you know I love to put channels in my pockets so that we have room for pens. I'm going to do that again here. And I'm starting from the bottom of the pocket with a back stitch. And I'm going to sew all the way to the top with a back stitch. And it's probably just about 1 inch away from the last stitching line. And now we can secure the outer pockets. All right, our pockets are the lining are done. We can set that one aside for the moment. And the pocket section's done for the outer fabric. Open this out, and we're going to place our webbing over the pockets now and around the entire bag. I have a really long length of webbing here which I'll be using for the handles and covering over the pockets. This is 106 inches in length. It's one continuous length, or 2.7 meters long. You want to fold it in half and find the center. And we'll mark that with a pin. And at the other end, neaten up the edges. And if you're using webbing, then you'll just grab a flame or a match or something and melt the ends. And that will seal the edges so that they don't fray any further. You can make handles as well. If you don't have access to webbing and you prefer to make your handles, you'll need fabric that's 10 centimeters or 4 inches in width. Fold it in half twice until you get to about 1 inch in width, and you'll need to fold the edges under so that you have no raw edges showing. Open out the bag. We've got our seam along the bottom here, and with the center of the webbing that we've marked earlier, we're going to place that over the side where the pocket is, and the center where the pin is going to be lined up with that seam at the bottom. We're going to place the outside edge of our webbing 3.5 centimeters or 1.25 inches from the outside edge there. Pin that in place. With the rest of the webbing here, we're going to line that up nice and straight so that at the top it's the same distance from that corner. That will be 3.5 centimeters or 1.25 inches. And that will keep your webbing nice and straight along here. We're not going to sew all the way to the top though. At this end we'll do the same. Stretch out your webbing so that it's nice and flat over the pocket, and measure 3.5 centimeters or 1.25 inches from the corner, and then the rest of it can be pinned in place, making sure that you're actually covering the edge of the pocket. You can move this a little to either side if you feel you need to, but you need to make sure that you've got plenty of room for a seam allowance on either side of your bag and for your box corners. That's that side done. Take the rest of your handle here, keeping it nice and flat. Bring it all the way around until that end meets up with the middle here. Once again, you'll line that up the same distance from the outside edge. Now, some may be wondering why I haven't actually sewn just 2 handle pieces into the bottom seam. The only reason I haven't done that is because it's a thick handle and it creates a lot of bulk underneath. So if you'd prefer to have 2 handles cut in half, you can sew that into the seam before you sew the bag together, or when you sew the bottom section together. Come up to the top again and keep the other side nice and flat. Bring that around and you can butt those edges together. At the top, you want that same measurement. Okay, so that's your webbing in place. We don't want to sew all the way to the very top. I'm going to measure 5 centimeters or 2 inches. I've made a little mark here. So when I'm sewing this webbing, I'll be sewing all the way down one side, come up to here, I'll triple stitch this, then come all the way back down the other side. And for each of the 4 sides of the handle, we'll be stopping 2 inches or 5 centimeters from the top. So mark your handle. Okay, let's sew it up. I'm going to start here where the 2 pieces meet. I've come up to the chalk line, back stitch, forward again. Let's turn our work. We'll triple stitch this, turn back down to where you came from. I've got the top edge of the pocket here. I'm going to triple stitch this in place. Now this is the section where I've joined my webbing together. I'll triple stitch over that. And what I will also do is to come around and sew the ends together so that they butt up really nicely. And then we can come straight up the side again. Triple stitch. I've stopped at the white line again. And we'll do the same for the other side of the bag. Okay, so that's the handles finished. And if you prefer something longer or shorter, you can decide how long you actually want to have your webbing to be. So this is really just designed to sit just over your shoulder. If you want a crossbody type, make the straps a bit longer, but allow for enough room on both sides of the bag. Place the right sides together and we can line up the side seam, and we'll take that to the machine in a moment. We'll sew straight down these 2 edges. Grab your lining fabric and we'll place right sides together. And remember I said earlier that we need to have a scrap piece of stabilizer. We don't need much, just enough so that the washer of our magnetic closures will fit inside. Find the center of the lining and I'll measure 2 inches from the top, and I'll center this piece directly over the top here, and we'll do the same for the other side, and we can iron both of these pieces in place. Okay, those 2 pieces have been secured. I've also gone and marked on the right side of the fabric 2 inches down and marked the center, and I've done that on both sides. Now it's time to put these magnetic closures on. And as I showed you earlier with my label, all I'm going to do is place the washer over that intersection and then mark my lines for the hole that I need to make in my fabric. And by putting that stabilizer on the back, you're giving this fabric a chance to survive a little bit longer when you're opening and closing it. So pop your seam ripper in, out. And then we can grab one of our buttons, pop those prongs through there. That'll come through the other side. Grab your washer and spread the prongs apart. And we'll do the same on the other side. So they should line up. Now some people like to put a piece of stabilizer over the top of this. You can do that now if you want to. Just go and iron that on or sew it, and I would have it a little bit bigger. And what that does is protects the other layer of your bag from being worn out by this metal bar. But because we're using stabilizer on this piece of fabric, I'm not going to worry about it. If it rubs, it's only going to rub on the fusible, not put a hole in the fabric. So that's up to you depending on what type of fabric you're using. Let's join up these side seams. All right, that's ready to be stitched up as well. So we'll sew all the way down this side here, from here down to here, leave an opening of about this much, and then from here down to here. Backstitch really well at the bottom and the top because we're going to be opening this section out to do our box corners shortly. Here we have a 1 centimetre or 3/8 inch seam allowance again. It's time to close up the box corners, so we can pinch the corners out and line up your fabric. Mine must have shifted when I was sewing it because it should really be straight across. And repeat for this side. And the lining will do the same. And we can close those up. I'm still using that 1 centimetre seam allowance. Now we can put our bag pieces together. Leave the outer fabric turned inside out like this. The lining, you can bring that the right way out. Pop your handles inside, and then you can place your lining inside the bag. You want the right sides facing the right sides. You'll just have to move the handles out of the way and the pockets. Place your fabric inside, and then we can line up the side seams. And once you've done the side seams, you can line up the rest. And now that that's clipped together, we can take this back to the machine, sew all the way around. And I'm going to start on one of the side seams. At this point, it's up to you whether or not you want a 1 centimetre seam allowance or whether you just want to go with your 1/4 inch. But I'm going to stick with my 1 centimetre. Okay, now that we've joined that, we can turn it the right way out. But before we do that, I'd like to prevent the lining from pulling out of the bag. So if I take the box corner at the bottom here and this one at the bottom of the outer bag, bring those edges together and secure those layers. And all I'm going to do is sew straight across here where I've already stitched. That will keep these two pieces together. This is the other side of my box corner. That's a side seam, with the side seam continuing on here down to the box corner on the other side of the bag. I'll grab this one and join that with this one as well. So bring the side seams together. You don't have to do this at all if it's a little bit confusing. Sometimes it takes a few bags to practice with before you get it. I know it did for me. I'll sew those two pieces together and those. I'm going to do that now and I'll be right back. So the lining and the outer fabric are joined together now. Find the opening and we can bring everything the right way out. Once you've turned it the right way out, poke out all your corners, give it a really good press, and we'll fold these seams so that they sit nice and evenly along the top edge in preparation to top stitch. Once you've done that, I like to turn this inside out again, because when I top stitch I want to see the top layer or the outer layer of fabric as I'm sewing. And because my machine is only a flatbed, I have to sew with this fabric faced up like this. On the side where you've got the opening, you can pinch those edges together to close up the bag, and around the top edge we'll go top stitch, and then the bag's finished. And now that the top stitching is done, we can find the opening and close that up. We're finished. Let's check out our bag. We've got our side pockets on the inside with the lining, a little channel for our pen on both sides. Let's turn this the right way out. I had plans to put a little hook on the inside of the bag and I completely forgot about that, so I'll have to leave that out. How cute is that? Got our pocket on the back, another pocket on the front. I can remove that protective cover now. Nice label on the outside and a good spacious bag in there. What gorgeous fabric. I just love this bag. I'm so glad I was distracted by the fabric and ended up making this bag today. It's so much prettier than the fabric I was about to use. Just love it. It's a very simple bag, but I think the fabric is absolutely adorable. I decided to use one of my really nice brushed metal name tags on this bag because the fabric was just really nice and vibrant. I thought that might stand out a little bit better than my normal fabric or faux leather labels. I didn't put Velcro or snaps on the pocket, mostly because I forgot. There were a few things that I forgot in this project. But if you wanted to put some plastic snaps on the bag or even Velcro, put the Velcro onto your lining before you close up the front pocket. And if you're going to put snap or again put Velcro, you'll need to attach it to the outer fabric before you actually put the linings in as well. I completely forgot about that. I was also going to put a D-ring in on the side so that I could put another bag inside there. I've got the memory of a fish. I just didn't remember anything. But what I did do to use up all of those two pieces of fabric I had was make a couple of extra bags. This one here is just a little boxy bag, and this one here is also a little boxy bag. It's actually supposed to have rounded corners at the bottom, so we've got boxing at the top, rounding at the bottom. I have done a video for it. I'm not sure if I'm going to go to the trouble to edit this. I probably will because the fabric's cute. I'm keeping a running total of the amount of bags that I make this year, and I've made a few extra bags since making this one a couple of days ago. I'm up to 50. It's the 23rd of January, and for this month so far I have made 50 different types of bags, zippered bags, box bags, handbags, you name it, I've made them. And I hope to get much more by the end of the month. I've got a week to go. With the magnetic labels and also with my regular labels, I do have a link in the description below telling you whereabouts I get these from, so you can look that up. And I don't think there's anything else I need to tell you. Webbing, if you can't get that in Australia, I do have that on my website as well. I'm going to put this in the shop. I haven't quite decided what price I'm going to put on it. Probably between $45 and $55. I don't know just yet. I kind of like it, and I'm not sure I want to part with it. But then I don't really use many bags. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.